Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar. We are excited to feature an overview plus deeper dive into managing vendor commitments in Sage Intacct Construction. Our presenters today are Bob Sandlins and Keith Andrews from Accordion Company. Just a few notes before we get started. Everyone is muted for a clean listening experience. If you have questions, please type them into the questions box and we will do our best to address them at the end of the session. If we run out of time, we will follow up with everyone individually. For the best visual experience, please maximize your screen. This webinar is being recorded and the link will be sent out to everyone later on today. I will now turn it over to you, Bob.
Thank you, Krista, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us to review our modern cloud solution, Sage Intacct Construction. By way of introduction, here's my contact information, mobile number, and email address. I've worked with many of you over the years, so hello, if I've not chatted in a while. We're going to start the agenda with an overview. I promise it will be short. Stay in a slide deck, and then we're going to move pretty quickly into the product and spend as much time as we can together in it. With a focus on dashboards, what's changed from your existing software to Sage Intacct via access to data. Also, paramount in new products is a user experience, a better look and feel to the software, a modern interface. So we'll make that clear. And then I'll talk about workflows. Then I'm going to hand it over to one of our most senior Intacct consultants, Keith Andrews, who's going to share with you an entry of a contract, a commitment, and then a change order to that, and then how quickly we can roll from a contract with a change right to a AP bill. So we'll jump in. A couple things for those of you new to Accordion. We're a Sage business partner with a technology focus on construction, real estate, and service-based companies. We now support thousands of companies and have a deep bench of Sage certified consultants ready to assist with any needs. Many attending this webinar are using either Sage 100 Contractor or Sage 300 CRE. First and foremost, I just want to relay to you, Sage is committed to ongoing development of both of these products for many years to come. Sage 100 and 300 continue to be the most widely used and newly implemented products in the industry. 30,000 plus installations across both of these products. Today, 100, 300 can be on your server, on premise, in your building, or it can be in a hybrid environment, cloud hosted. Plus, both of these products have a whole slew of available web services to extend operations to the web for reporting on a web or with a mobile user. Now, Sage Intacct Construction is a next generation state-of-the-art product built natively for the cloud. It's a true multi-tenant SaaS, which is software as a service solution. And by the way, Sage Intacct now has 15,000 customers. It all started with Timberline and Master Builder, which over the years, some of you will probably still today refer to your products as that. But over the years, those have been renamed or rebranded in the marketplace as Sage 100 Contractor and Sage 300 CRE. These two products inspired Sage Intacct product managers to add unique construction capabilities to Sage Intacct platform. Sage Intacct, by the way, is the only preferred provider of AICPA, rock solid financials. It's the only publisher to have earned this endorsement to date. Intacct is also a leader in customer satisfaction, evidenced by a rating of 98 out of 100 on G2 Crowd across 2,000 reviews. And Intacct is also the leader in innovation, recognized as a visionary by Gartner. Sage Intacct Construction provides improved workflows with a rock solid core financial, and we're going to spend some time specifically on that. It's a best-in-class financial management solution now for construction. It was built from the ground up to integrate with best-in-class solutions. An example would be, let's say, Procore. Open APIs make interacting with data not only possible, but relatively simple. Every object in Sage Intacct has an open API. So the opportunity to connect to ADP, Procore, Bill.com, or a host of other very successful, really pointed solutions is here today. So a little bit about just the sequencing of updates. So in Sage 100, 300, and other systems that are in market, often the vendor, the publisher provides an update or two per year. And it's your responsibility to install those updates and stay current. With Sage Intacct construction, a big change is that the updates automatically are pushed out to all 15,000 users 4 times a year, February, May, August, and November, the 3rd Saturday of each of those months. Those updates are accompanied by videos and great documentation on screen that will tell you about what's new in the latest version of the software. So this slide is really just kind of to give you a sense for what's available in Sage Intacct from a vertical perspective. Now I've highlighted the construction and then the components within construction that most of you are thinking about or would need in an application. So Sage has made some very specific enhancements, and I'll be more specific in the applications, but just a couple examples. Within Sage Intacct, we now have a highly flexible job, sub-job, aka extra, for those of you on 300, cost coding category, where that structure can be different by different types of work. Whereas in our legacy or traditional systems or other systems in market 100, 300, typically you have a cost code structure that conforms to all jobs, and you can't vary that. Another example is just an improved AP and AR retainage process with release capabilities. And then we're going to show an improved commitment and change management workflow that makes just transacting in the software a lot easier. Things even like taking an estimate and with a click, duplicating that estimate, making changes and making that your primary estimate to track against. So there's a lot of changes in the software, and it addresses some of the items down at the bottom of this road or solution map. One other thing I just want to highlight is that there are hundreds of companies that have connected to Sage Intacct, not through an import or an export from one product and import into Sage, but rather through an API. Again, an API is an application program interface that allows 2 software products to connect without human intervention. So it's not like we have to go grab a file or export a file and then import that in. An example of that would certainly be with your banks in Sage Intacct, where we could connect live feeds into Sage Intacct for automating your reconciliations. We'll talk a little bit more about that as well. Some of you are using products in market today that integrate nicely with Sage 100 and 300. You can count on most of those products moving forward with you with new web or native web solutions that will integrate with Sage Intacct as well. Procore came out earlier this summer. TimberScan released it late last year, a product called Titanium. And Sage Service Operations was released last month, all with Sage Intacct. GC Pay, for those of you that are doing any kind of web-based payment processing for contractor or subcontractors typically, that now is integrated with Sage Intacct as well. So let's jump in. One other thing I just want to highlight, by the way, here is that there are products that you're using. Sorry. I can roll back here, like Print Boss or Create a Check, AvidXchange Create a Check. or My Assistant, an alerts tool, Office Connector, Liberty Reports. Those products are missing from this list in most parts because what those products provided in market have been eliminated by just platform capabilities within Sage Intacct. So it's within the application to have a smart events and smart rules, which I'll talk about in a minute when we jump in. So let's do that. And I'm going to drag over the application to the screen so everybody can see Sage Intacct live. I've opened up for everyone actually 2 different dashboards just as defaults that we can move around to. Let's start with the dashboards, and then I'll talk a little bit about the user interface and a little bit about workflow. And then right at the top of the hour, Keith Andrews is going to walk us through entering a subcontract, a change order, and a related invoice. When you log in, this might be what you see. Most companies want access to a dashboard or even a specific application, but I've logged in and opened up a dashboard called a controller dashboard. This particular view is looking at a multi-entity organization, and if you notice at the top of the screen it says top level. That means that I'm looking at a consolidation across multiple companies. Within a dashboard view, if you wanted to zero in on a specific company through what's called a dimension, dimensions are just attributes to transactions. Perhaps I want to see all the transactions on a specific company. It's that quick to filter a dashboard and re-render that dashboard to a specific company. So there's company 10, let's do company 20. You can group entities, or by the way, we'll show you this in a minute, you can group jobs as well. So if you notice, if I choose a North region, and I'm not sure why I've got Texas in the North region, but we've got Texas and Maine. Now I've collapsed 2 companies, and those 2 companies are now displaying performance cards at the top of the dashboard, an income statement by entity, a cash flow, and a balance sheet. So from here, most of you are probably thinking, well, that's fine, but I can get that. But how about this on either a income statement or a performance card, clicking on a number and drilling down to the transactions that make up that number live. Now notice, by the way, I'm looking at this as of 7/31. Let's clear this, reapply this, or re-render that as of today, all entities. Dashboard redraws, now collapsing all the data as of today. Now notice the 3 performance cards up here on this dashboard. Think of these as KPIs, key performance indicators, or metrics in your company with a trending. So if we click on 8274, what would you expect? Well, what makes up that $8,000? By whatever pool of accounts apply to that performance card. And by the way, this performance card is set for September, and it's looking at the prior month. This could be year-to-date, perhaps, with a year-to-date budget or year-to-date last year comparison. So when you look at a performance card and you ultimately drill down into transactions from any GL account, the perspective or period of time is up to you in the definition of that performance card. Just like if we look at revenue, well, this happens to be month to month, but again, the ability to drill down into transactions. Let's go look at like an income statement, and let's look at this income statement by entity or by department. So for those of you that have multiple companies, this would be obviously a company list real quick. If you have divisions, you might see a P&L by division. And I'll go ahead and just open up one of these. And if you click on that little link there on the right, here, let's go back there. If you click right here, view all, just opens up that report full screen. And then from here, what do you expect to be able to drill down into transactions? All of the views, and this is a view or a widget, are customizable. So if you notice on all of these, there's a little pencil, which is an edit capability, where you could go into a specific report on a dashboard and then in one place change the view of what's displayed. Maybe that's specific to your login. So that might vary by user as well. Let's jump out of this dashboard and look at a job dashboard. Again, performance cards up top. You could have 3, 10, 20, and a whole list of report views. So this dashboard is got a one-liner by job. Here's an interesting one where each job is a separate column. And again, in all of these dashboards, think of the blue links as what? Hyperlinks to transaction detail. So I click on that 2700, there are the invoices that make up the materials on that job. Data can be presented in graph and pie chart. We can also build reports right into it where you could quickly just select a job right within that report. And notice how fast the data is re-rendering. Now, that concept of dimensions or filters on the financial dashboard, where we would choose perhaps by division or by entity, how about considering to do that within your job list? Now, again, this is all jobs across all companies. If you're a single entity business, then it would just be your main company. But let's say from here, you might say, well, wait a minute, I want to see all of our warehouse or interior fit out or a certain type of business that we do. We've just filtered now on warehouses, and these happen to be the 3 warehouses with drill downs. You might say, well, wait a minute, I want to put an additional filter on that data. And by the way, the dashboards not only are customizable, but also the filters are customizable. So here, let's just lay on top of that another filter saying, okay, let's see that contractor or that supplier on that job type right now, as of today. And now I'm looking at that data re-rendered with the ability to drill down into invoices by a vendor charged to a specific job to whatever GL accounts. Now, you might say, wait a minute, I want to see this as of, I don't know, let's go back 12/31. So completely transaction date driven view of all the dashboards and reports. All right, so let's move on. We have a lot more ground to cover before I pass some of the demonstration over to Keith Andrews. Wanted to share with you just a little bit about like navigation in the application. And to start, do you notice on the top right of the screen are Samlins? That's my login. So each of you that logs into Sage Intacct will have specific preferences. These preferences are really how you want the software to behave, or think of it as a user experience. We refer to that as UX. Things like timeout. You know, how long is it before it doesn't see any activity and it logs you out? Let's say you want to, when you log in, access a specific application or a specific dashboard. Which one? Again, dashboards are role-based or individually set. When you move around the application, do you want to just hover and the application screens roll with you, or do you want to click? What order do you want screens to be in? When you open up a entry window, how many lines do you want to be presented? 5, 10, 20? When you click a lookup, same thing. So just remember, I've got right now set for 2. So when we go into like a PO or an invoice, you'll see 2 lines for transaction entry. All of this makes the software easier to work. Like, do you want decimal points to be automatically inserted? So you just key a number and it automatically does it. Somebody might like that. Somebody else might dislike that. One thing I want to highlight, I promise I don't go through all this. Most companies with Sage Intacct are turning on a feature called Collaborate. Collaborate allows you within your organization to share conversations about a transaction, an AP bill, a purchase order, a change order, a journal entry, and then keep those notes and conversation threads attached to the transaction or record. And if you noticed all the way over to the right, when you log in each morning, you'll see if there's any new messages that you need to respond to. And by the way, if I click on either one of these 3 that are in my queue right now, it takes me right to that transaction and I can comment. That hopefully eliminates some email and some Post-it notes across desks. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the applications that are in the suite today. We have all the core financial applications. What's coming late this year, Sage is reporting 1/1/22, we'll be able to start running construction payrolls in Sage Intacct. Not out yet, but we're expecting that. The other application we're expecting later this year will be property management. What's not here today that's coming, it looks like R1, latest will be R2 of next year, again, either the February or May release, will be a full, newly built, easy to use AIA billing system with a lot more flexibility than what we've had in our other products. So a little bit about just moving around. Let's jump into a company. I've opened up this company. Remember, I have multiple companies. So security is by company. It's not just, you know, on a folder like we have today in 300 or 100. It's within every entity. So I'm allowed to transact in this entity. Security is obviously by application, by task, everywhere in the software. A couple things that you need to know are here. First, when you work within Sage Intacct and open up a screen, let's say you want to enter a bill, you would just click the plus and it takes you right to a bill entry screen like you'd expect, right? So if you go to journal entries and you click plus, it takes you right into the journal entry screen. Notice each of these screens looks exactly like the last one. We go to a purchase order. Again, Keith will show you the purchase order subcontract side, and we'll enter a transaction in here in just a minute. But notice all of the screens are the same. Notice as well, even when we were on the dashboards, there were action buttons on the right of every screen. So consistent design layout in every application, every window. When you go to an application like AP, instead of clicking on the plus to just record a bill, you could click on bills and it will then take you to a list view. Notice that this list view says Bob's view. Well, this could be tailored for every person that logs in your organization. And to do that, you would just edit that view and turn on or off columns that are relevant to you. Well, why is that significant? Well, when you open up a screen like this to then just add a bill, remember, so if we go back here, we click bills, it takes you to the list view from which you could edit or search on any of these columns, or just simply add a bill. All the windows work this way. So what do we mean by search? Well, you might be in here saying, hey, I want to just look at, I don't know, vendors that are alpha, and I've got one vendor alpha installation. Now, from this one screen where you could just add a bill, you could also, if you have security to do this, you could edit a bill and pull down here, drop it to a field or a GL account or a cost code, wherever you want to, make you have access to that. Notice up top as well, I can just post this. I could submit this for review and approval if I'm making a change. We could also, with one click, duplicate a bill right from the screen. So let's go back. Let's pretend we're going to just add a bill together. Oh, one more thing. If I clear this filter, and again, all the screens work the same way, maybe you want to just look at, I don't know, every vendor bill in ascending amount or descending amount. So highly flexible, define the grids the way you want them to be, and then to interact with a specific transaction, just click edit or view. Now let's add a bill, and we'll just charge one real quick as an example, A1 Electric. By the way, did you notice I didn't click list and then or change it to view by name? I just started typing in the name. Automatically pops up a list. I pick the one I want, a bill number, and I'm just giving an example of a transaction entry. Let's minimize, or let's just grab a document off my screen here, and I'm going to grab this document and drag it onto this bill. So let's say I have a copy of the AP bill or a journal entry or a change order or a purchase order or whatever. You can assign a document number to it. You could put it into a folder, and this AP bill that I'm entering, with one drag and drop, I've attached that image to the bill, and it's saved on the web, indexed specifically to that invoice for review. Now, notice down below what everybody's expecting. job, cost code, whatever you've got coded in your database. We'll just go ahead and pick a cost code in a category, and let's just go ahead and drop $80 into that and submit that. Now, submit new might be just post, or submit if I have a review and approval process. Notice up top on that, as soon as I click submit, pop-up appeared. That pop-up says, hey, wait a minute, that $80 is blowing your budget. Well, you have visibility into not just what's been posted in cost to that cost code, they're all the bills, but you also have access to the budget. And for those of you that have asked over the years, one of the improvements Sage made now is budgets can now be tracked by month as opposed to just lump sum, if that's important. And obviously we can get into the purchase orders. Now I could go ahead, if I have the access to this, submit that and let it roll anyway, or it could be a hard stop. So let's just talk about that for a minute. I mentioned the need, or no longer the need, for My Assistant or Office Connector. So My Assistant is, for those of you that don't know what that is, it's a business alerts tool that sits inside of Sage 300. We have an alerting tool in Sage 100 as well, and others of you that have other programs might have some kind of tool to do that. Within the Sage Intacct platform, we have the ability in what's called platform services. This comes with the application to set up smart events and smart rules. Now, a smart event is a trigger. So when a given event occurs, certain conditions are met, it can then send an email to somebody. So let's say we record the receipts for the day. As soon as we click finish, it sends an email to, let's say, ownership with the new bank balance and the transactions that were posted. A smart rule is sort of what we just looked at when we entered an AP bill and that bill exceeded the commitment or the estimate or the commitment amount. It can pop up a message. Now, that's one that's standard in the application through called spend management, which is part of our job cost system. But a smart rule could be a limit on any field anywhere in Sage Intacct. So you could make certain fields required on a screen. When you're entering a transaction, you could put, barriers or a quarter to a limit of what's available to be entered into a specific field. So smart rule can be on any field inside the application that pops up a message to a user when they enter something into that field on a specific object. One other attribute is within Sage Intacct, now we can add custom fields on every screen. So an example of that, if I jump back here, I added one under the purchase order screen. If we go into add a purchase order, notice this field right here. I said, hey, I wanted a custom field on that window right there to capture data, and I could make that a required field that somebody has to key into. So custom fields, smart rules, smart events, just to keep users in track or in a controlled in terms of what's coded into the system, all about making the data a lot more accurate and postings more secure, perhaps. So Keith, before I turn it over to you, I just want to cover a couple other things real quick, and then we'll jump into a workflow around commitment process. One other thing I want to just show, and there's so much we would want to, in a deeper dive with anybody that would like to set up a meeting, go into more detail, but some of the things that are resonating when you look at the products you're using today and how the screens are designed differently today. Another great example of that is just like paying bills. So I'm just going to open up that screen. Yes, you could select by job. You could pick a date range if you wanted to, or let's just pick a vendor, that alpha vendor, apply that filter, and up pops all the invoices. The reason I take you here is that a couple things are important that are different. One, full screen. So hopefully you get a sense for the user interface here is super clean. The ability to know whether I'm making payments right now via check or perhaps an ACH file. The ability to change a bank real quick. Notice that on this Wells Fargo bank, we have a $67,000 balance to the right. If I choose the Chase, there's 20 million in that account. So why is that important? Well, when you start selecting which invoices you want to pay, you're going to get a running balance of what the net amount in that account is. The other attribute that everyone seems to like, and I like to highlight this because it's kind of how the whole software works. When you're in a transaction and you'll see blue links to either drill down, or perhaps right here, you might want to look at that invoice 5656. You click on that hyperlink, up pops this screen right on top of your window. And obviously, if you had the attachment, you would see that if there was an attachment to that. But here's the invoice in the line items on that. You could edit that if you have the ability to do that. You could also duplicate this to create another transaction or another AP bill while you're paying the bill. So I'm paying the bill up. I want to change something real quick on that bill. Go ahead and edit it, and then save that and continue on with your process of paying those vendor invoices. Up top, notice we can add it to an outbox, or you can just pay now. You can have as many people in this window at the same time selecting invoices, creating their own outboxes. We just think of them as queues, which then later, perhaps at the end of the week on Friday, we would go ahead and release all the checks that have been selected. So that's a real quick overview. Last thing before I turn it to Keith, because he's going to talk about creating a commitment on a job and a cost code. Just know that we've made great improvements, or Sage has made great improvements in how you do simple things like even just setting up a job. So if I jump there real quick, here's your job list. Notice the display of subjobs or extras. Notice that you could, on a job with one click, drill down to your phase and cost code structure. This is what Keith's going to create a commitment on in a minute. And then below the cost codes are what? For those of you that track cost types or categories, completely customizable here. One last thing, just know whether it's a vendor, a customer, a job. Here, let me just roll back there. I didn't mean to roll back all the way. When you're in here, the user interface to open up a screen, edit a field is so much better. If you click on estimates, this is what I was referring to early on. Here's an estimate. We could right now just edit something on this estimate, or we could do a change estimate, which actually creates a transaction trail behind that change estimate. We could duplicate this estimate, call it estimate number 2, and make that now my primary estimate that we're going to track against. Last thing, and then Keith, you're up. Remember the correspondence log when we talked about permissions, or over here when you log in, and we talked about preferences. For me as a user, I've turned my correspondence log feature on. That's why I'm seeing this. And here's a conversation log that took place around setting up this job. But that could be on a specific transaction. Okay, Krista, let's have Keith jump in and share with everybody the process of how we create commitments and change orders, and then ultimately how quick is it to just create a bill on from that.
Okay. Okay. Let's see. Can you see my screen right now?
We do.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Certainly, Bob, and thank you very much. So what we're going to do right now is I'm going to show you how to easily create a subcontract change, and then we're going to actually show you how easily it is to apply an invoice to that. And like what Bob showed you before, if I click on the subcontract list, you'll see all the subcontracts that are in the system with the same find capabilities and search capabilities that Bob was showing you. If I click simply on going to my subcontract plus sign, like Bob showed, if I click on that and go right into the enter screen for entering a subcontract, and looking for my vendor, let's say, for example, if I wanted to get Beaverton Sand and Gravel, who's going to be a subcontractor, who's going to do some demolition work for me, we can see some fields here that will be automatically populated. We've got additional fields that not necessarily related to all clients, for example, exchange rate. So we're pretty much international and national, obviously, and we can basically deal with and encompass pretty much any sort of exchange rate situation if need be. Here, I'm going to just go ahead, Bob.
I'm sorry. Yeah, we can also turn that off where that wouldn't be displayed at all. So most of you are just working domestically, you wouldn't see the currency exchange rates or any of those fields pop in.
Correct. Depending on certain settings and so on, certain fields won't even be available or seen. There's no need for them, obviously. In this particular database, we turned everything on just for display purposes. So thanks for that, Bob. So I'm just going to add some scope information right in here, which obviously we would want to take that information and throw it onto the actual subcontract. So I'm just going to type in or paste in some information just for speed purposes. Here, again, if I wanted to just grab my job, I could just start typing the name or the ID of the job, and the job quickly comes right up. My cost code, I could click the drop down if I needed to, or if I particularly knew what the name was for that cost code, I could start typing it, just the name. Don't need to even know what the cost code number is, and goes right to it. And in this case, we've got, like Bob showed you, to that cost code, we've got a cost type. That's the default cost type, because we, as this particular company, we don't do our own demolition. We always sub that out. I'm going to put the price in here. So let's say this price is $200,000. Throw that right in there. And of course, it's holding that 10% retainage on that subcontract. I'm going to just post that. And now I've entered a subcontract. Now there's some other fields in there. If need be, we could add some additional information with regards to scheduling and when we think they're going to be done, when we think they're going to actually start. So now I have my subcontract. If I go and click on edit to that subcontract, to add to that subcontract a change order, it's really as simple as the buttons that Bob had showed you before, which was right here under more actions, new, and it's going to be a change order. It's going to take me straight to the change order. What's really neat about this is it's basically copying all the information that we need for this change order, and this would automatically populate with the correct job cost code of the existing change order. I can throw some scope information in there, some additional scope that's over and above, different from what was on the actual subcontract, or I can leave that, with the original scope if need be, right? Here, you can see that I can put in a price for this change. So in this case, let's say we're going to put in $50,000, right? And that's going to be held, another 10% of retainage. For that, I can just go ahead and simply post. Now, a couple of things we can look at. If I were to go back to my subcontract and I see a list of all of my subcontracts right over here to the right, I can just simply hit print and email, and I can print an email right from here. If I click email, it'll give me an email box. I can have email templates as to what I want to actually put in that email with the body and the subject of that email. I'm just going to print preview this, and a totally customizable document for our subcontract, right? Many of our clients will have this, customized according to their specific needs with their own verbiage and legal information. Sometimes some clients just simply attach that to our existing document. The same thing I can actually see if I were to go look at my subcontract change order. So here I can also click on my print. And there I have my subcontract document. I can go ahead, the subcontract change order document, and I can go ahead and send that out, right? So I could print it, I can email it straight from Intacct. Again, remember, it's all web-based, right? So we can have automatic alerts, something has just been created. We can have this set up where once it's created, it goes right out to the vendor, it's emailed automatically. So a lot of very useful, very helpful automation built into the software with regards to communication and getting documents around. So I'm going to just jump back really quickly to the subcontract again, because now that that subcontract has been not only entered, but has a change order added to it, I'm going to take a little deeper look at what's on that subcontract information for my purposes. So I'm going to click on my view here for that subcontract, and I can see this was the original amount of the subcontract, and these are my posted changes to it. So that's really neat that right at a glance, I can see it very easily where I am with my subcontract. If I click on my change document, it tells me, hey, this is a change order that we've put in for this subcontract, and here's my document. Again, the same drill down capabilities that Bob was showing you. Straight from that screen, I can see my change order, right? Don't have to go to another screen just to take a look at that. And then if I look at my history, I can see there's 2 documents that's attached to this particular change. And it's tracking this as we go along. So that's really neat, very easy to find, very easy to drill down, and very easy to get the detail. The fact that I now have the subcontract on the screen, I can easily add a vendor invoice to that. So remember what I did before. I was in the subcontract screen, I added a change order, and I'm back here to the subcontract, and what I'm going to do is add a vendor invoice for a portion of the subcontract or plus the subcontract change order. Our terminology for that adding of the invoice is convert, and when I click on it, it's basically saying, okay, we're going to go ahead and add a vendor invoice against that subcontract. Again, I can see where I am. It's got a total right now of $250. I'll come in here, I'll go and add my vendor invoice number, whatever that particular invoice number is, and right down here under my price, I can just enter the amount of that vendor invoice. So I'm looking at the document, and that vendor invoice is basically for $175,000, and that's it. I've just entered my vendor invoice. It's that simple. That invoice is not only available here visibly for you to see, but I can essentially come right into my accounts payable and click on my bills list like you saw before, and here's my invoice waiting for me to go ahead and pay. So just simply looking at this, you can see that the flow of this actual process is very easy. If I were to go back to my source document, which was my subcontract, now that subcontract is updated with even an additional document. So if I were to go look at the history, now I've got all 3 documents here. So you can see it's keeping track of everything that's going on. And of course, as we pay it, obviously that's going to be visible also to that subcontract. We've got the ability to have reports in here regarding your subcontract, your commitments, and basically we've put together a number of commitment reports and job plus reports, and some of which we just simply distribute. So we've got reports that kind of show, you know, basically the original, the amount, the revised, and so on. So there are various reports that we have in the system, and we basically can accommodate virtually any sort of display information that you would want. So that right there, if you just kind of look at the whole workflow, I'm going to just click on this overview, which gives you a graphical flow and feel for how information would be flowing through the software. But that essentially would be taking us from a subcontract, adding change orders to that subcontract, being able to see and having full visibility to where we were with that, and then moving that to the next stage of an invoice. Just one last thing, if I were to go back into that subcontract and I needed to add an additional invoice, you can see that the remaining amount is the only thing that's available there to ensure that we don't overpay that vendor's invoice. So a very robust, very clean interface, very strong and powerful reporting capability, drill down, and access to your information consistently. So that pretty much covers what I wanted to show you guys with regards to the subcontract workflow. I'm going to just, Bob, turn it back over to either you or Krista. And thank you.
Thank you, Keith. And what we just showed is really how all the transactions flow from an application. If it was a quote to a contract, to a customer invoice, it's the same kind of simple flow. Documents roll to the next document with real clean, clear screens. So just a recap of what we just saw. Real-time project visibility through interactive dashboards with filters, drill down reports, performance cards, all highlighting key metrics in your company. And each of you might have a different set of metrics you care about, like how much cash is on hand as soon as you hit the screen, across how many bank accounts with one click to drill into it. that all takes advantage, those performance cards and dashboards take advantage of what Sage refers to as dimensionalized data. Also, automated workflows that we're hearing save time, but yet with smart rules and smart events enforce company policies. And then I hope everyone has seen by now, this software is incredibly intuitive, easy to use, and thoughtfully designed, but yet highly customizable. In our implementations of Sage Intacct, we're finding we spend more time on the configuration of the software, specific to how companies want the flows to work, and very little time now on training users how to actually transact in it. So this is adding up to a new next-gen, modern, state-of-the-art construction platform. And we welcome the opportunity to spend more time in any one application or the entire suite at anyone's convenience. So thank you all for joining this session and taking or sharing 45 minutes with us. We'll certainly answer any open questions that are in the chat log that came in and follow up with each of you individually. Have a great day. Thanks, everybody.